This guy has been blind for many years. Suddenly his eyes recovered miraculously. He looked in the mirror and realized that he was pretty handsome. He also felt that the look of the wife who had taken care of him all these years was not worthy of him. His name is James. He was blind since he was a kid. Fortunately, he has a very happy family. His wife always cares for him and protects him. He also has a very cute, obedient son. He works at a real estate agency. His job is very simple, customer service. James has always felt satisfied with his simple life, but deep down, he always wants to be able to see everything again. Before he went to bed, he always smiled gently at his wife. The wife also could not understand her husband's pain when he always hid it in those gentle but happy smiles. People always believe that, if you pray enough, God will be touched and give you what you want. And his plea was answered. That morning, James opened his eyes, surprised to feel the light. He was very shocked. Everything that appeared in his eyes gradually became clear. He was finally able to see after so many years. James was so happy that his whole body trembled when he saw his son's face for the first time. Then he saw his own face too. When the wife arrived, James took his wife's hand, happily said that he was able to see her again. Then his wife took him to see the doctor. The doctor also could not believe this was true. His eye recovery was a miracle. James's nerves have indeed recovered. They come home. It is like the first time James learned to walk. He slowly walked step by step on the grass. These are the first steps of his new life. James sat down on the bed, still a bit unfamiliar with the current situation. His wife, Sam, also quickly put on her makeup and changed into a beautiful dress. She took the day off to spend time with him. James has been experiencing the life of an ordinary person. He walked to school to pick up his son. Unknowingly seeing a bruise on his child's face, he found out that his son was always bullied at school. In the evening, Sam took James to a very special place. This is where they first met. Many years ago they also danced together here. Those moments were deeply embedded in his memory. Sam has always wished James could have a better life, and for her, James's recovery was the happiest thing. He and Sam went to the pool, but his attention was not on his wife. James is always distracted by what's happening around him. He always felt curious about the life of an ordinary person, the life he had always wanted. He began to care for his own looks. At night, when his wife and children were asleep, James sneaked out to the bar. With good looks, James is very easy to seduce the girls there. James was delighted to enjoy the joys of life he missed out on. But from that moment he was lost. James went home and removed all the blind people's equipment and threw them all away. When he went to work, he discovered that his boss was a very beautiful woman. He noticed her when he smelled that familiar scent of perfume. When James sees everyone in the conference room in luxury suits, he wants to be like them too. He spent a lot of his savings to buy himself one. Then he also started to exercise. James's life was different now. Years of being blind made him try a lot at work. Since then, he became more and more successful and was noticed by many people. One evening, James invited his dear, blind friend, Bob, over to the house to have dinner. James has become a new star at the company. The principal about violence in the school. He even arbitrarily told his son to skip school to go out with him. James wants his son to move to a better school, but the kid doesn't want everyone in the family to worry too much about him. Because of their son's education, they also have conflicts. This unintentionally created a distance between the two. During this time, James, because of his outstanding achievements at work, was promoted by his boss as a manager. Facing difficulties in the scarcity of housing, he came to his sexy boss to discuss work. After spending a long day with the hot female boss, James feels very boring while having dinner with his wife. Nor could Sam adapt to this high-class restaurant's ambience. At the company, James proposed setting up an advisory department to encourage people to buy houses. Because of budget shortages, all of this will be James' responsibility. That evening, at a company party, James realized his feelings for his sex boss. And it seems that she felt the same thing. That night, James asked Sam, why out of all the people at the prom that night, Sam chose a blind man like him. Was it because of pity? Sam didn't answer his questions. She knew he had changed. Sam's silence made James sure of his thoughts. James has completely lost. He divorces his wife and started a more exciting life with his boss. James has completely forgotten his previous life. James bought himself a room near the company to deal with his work. He took advantage of acquaintances who were previously blind, intending to trick them into having a large sum of money. James also no longer cared about the consequences. Bob is blind, but James cannot deceive him. He understood that James was a bastard, so he immediately stopped James's scam. James suddenly failed. He angrily went to Bob's house to question him. Bob said he did the right thing. James, under anger, has loudly scolded and threatened Bob. Their friendship for many years was ruined like that. James continues his hoax with others. When he woke up at night, he discovered lying next to him was not the woman he loved, and he remembered Sam again. Sam, after divorce James, began to love her life more. She had plenty of time to take care of her own life. She also has no desire to talk to James. Their son also had to go through a very difficult time. The boy was always sad, no longer being cheerful like he used to be. One day, James discovered that his new wife had an affair. James then understood things and went to find Sam. But at that time Sam had a new life with Bob, and he also lost all capacity to face them. James is also feeling very scared lately. His eyesight was getting worse and worse. He went to the doctor for an examination and they did not find anything wrong. James can no longer calm down, fearing he will return to being a useless blind man in the eyes of others. He tried He is very pitiful but also very guilty. She also cannot forgive James for what he did to their family. James's last hope was lost, he just had to go into the woods. Now, the darkness that has covered his entire past comes again.